Hello again, everybody. Nice to be back with you. My name is John D. Healy. People know me because I produced this book about my friend Stoney McGurn, and that's how it all started. It's his life story, starting in 1941 up until recently. True stories and things that happen. Lots of history, lots of education too. You can get it on Amazon. It's also on audio. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, moving company here in New York City, and they've been around longer than Jeopardy. Lots of experience. When it comes to moving, let Liffey do the lifting. This week, chat to you about some events I was at during the week. The Small Business Channel was hosted down at 1010 Wynn Studio. As they say, give you 22 minutes and they give you the world. If you give me 25 minutes, I'm going to tell you all about the Small Business Challenge. And later I went to the Mule Society of New York. I'll update you on that too, about some of the activities coming up for the Mule Society of New York. But first, let's get back to the Small Business Challenge. It was sponsored by Dime Community Bank, and they were giving out $10,000 in funds to the finalists of the Small Business Challenge. So it was down to 5 finalists, and I'll go through these briefly in a moment. But first, let me explain who was at the Small Business Challenge. Well, Rob Walsh, shown here in this brochure. Rob is like the Holy Spirit. He's everywhere. He was the Commissioner of Small Business and Services here in New York City. He did a stint with Mayor Bloomberg a long, long time ago. Well, maybe not that long ago. And there was also an award presented to Juliet Papa, a lovely lady. She's a presenter with 1010 Wins, and she's covered, I guess, news items, all of the mayors in New York City, Pope John Paul I inauguration, and all the activities that have gone on in New York down the years. And she really is like a bright light on a dark road, lovely lady. So let's see who else we have there. Now, the judges who had to judge, Daniel Delahanty. He is the Community Development Director with Dime Community Bank. Thomas Wallace is the President of Independent Development Services. And Dr. Susan Burns, President of College of Mount St. Vincent. And Rob Walsh, of course, was the Master of Ceremonies for the event. And as I said, it was held in the theatre part of the studio at 1010 Wins, down on the west side. Beautiful setup and very welcoming people there. I want to thank them for that, especially Luis Garcia, who had sent me the details about it. So let me explain to you then about the Small Business Challenge. The Small Business Challenge is for startup new companies that are just starting out, and they had to make a presentation and explain what to do and how to do it in the hopes that someone would collect the big cash prize of $10,000, which would help any small business starting out. So I'll start from the top, and as I go through, see which one you might think would be worthy of the $10,000 as the big prize. They're all equally good and they're all interesting. I had my favorites. My favorite didn't win, but that's okay. It's important that they're all partake in it. So we'll start at the top, okay? So the first company is called Ronan's Catering, okay? This is set up by Ronan Shreffrin, and if you like potato chips, you're going to love this product. He cooks, him and his lady friend, produces chips not made from potatoes, but made from mushrooms. And he has 4 different flavors. I think they're available now in Fairway Supermarket and Farmers Market. And let me give you a little bit more knowledge on it. Flavors like green onion, smoky barbecue, and all made with mushrooms. Good if you're diabetic, I guess. Good if you want to lose weight, I guess, and all that. So they were in the running for the top prize. Now, their website is ronansmouthwateringmorsels.com. Say it one more time. ronansmouthwateringmorsels.com. Okay, so moving on to the second competitor is Clay and Killam Studio, and this is to do with pottery. And this one was presented by Christian Dagan, and this operation is set up in out in Long Island, and it's Christian, and her mother-in-law is her business partner. And you would imagine that would be tricky, I guess, kind of an unusual partnership to go into business with your mother-in-law. Not for me, but anyways, what do? They have the studio there for all ages, family friendly, and everything from painting, glazing, ceramics, and other art workshops to make all kinds of creations. So whether you're young or old or an expert in the art world, Clay and Killam welcomes everyone of all walks of life who wants to explore their creative side. Interesting. And their website is clayandkillamstudio.com. clayandkillamstudio.com. Now, moving on to the third contestant, is called Smart Chopping. Smart Chopping, and this was presented by Carolyn Milheiser, and the website is easy, smartchopping.com. So what Carolyn did here is she very creatively and innovatively took the household chopping board, chop, 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 where you chop your onions and carrots and vegetables when you're preparing a meal or making a salad or whatever else. And she, I think, has 3 babies, 3 children. So I guess it's a lot of work holding a baby on one arm and trying to chop with the other hand. So this chopping board she, I guess, innovated is like a regular chopping board, except that it has sides, and they're magnetic sides. They're attached to all 4 sides of the chopping board. It's in this rectangle, so it stops the food spilling onto the floor, onto the table. Very curious, interesting item. I think it's priced around $70, which is not bad if it does all the things it's supposed to do that she says it's do, that it does. And it's more or less this is probably a second prototype, I guess. And I have a knowledge of this because I did some inventions myself back in the day. So I know how strenuous it can be when you bring something to a certain stage and then you realize you have to make more changes to get it to the final prototype. So that was Smart Chopping. Now, the next interesting one is called Rocking the Boat, and this was presented by Adam Green. I met Adam at other functions, and his wife, Jay. And they do a lot of work for young people, well, young and old, I guess. And it's the whole aspect of boats, manufacturing boats, making boats, handmade boats, and then sailing boats and rowing boats and all of that. And they get them out up in the Bronx. And it helps students, say, in high school and trade school, and develops their technical skills to prepare them for the world ahead. I did have more knowledge on them somewhere, but I'll give you their website too, and you can look at what they do in terms of services they provide. And you can join events like rowing and sailing and other various water events. And I think most of the things they have are actually free to join. And if you want to become more involved, they're planning to extend down into Central Park. I know in Central Park there are model boats there as well. These are slightly more bigger to go on a river, go on a lake, and all that. So that's Rocking the Boat with Adam Green. And finally, the next one is the Whaling Museum of Cold Spring Harbor. And this was presented by Naomi Dayan, and she did a great presentation, and she dressed for the occasion in the old clothes of the day, going back to the 90-year-old institution that has 6,000 artifacts and all the history of whaling in Long Island from Huntington Avenue Camp. And it's great for children and all that, and the museum is well worth a visit. So she presented some of the treasures from the museum during her presentation, and that was interesting. So let's see, who do you think won? Let me give you the list again, and you can say, okay, was it Ronan's Catering with the mushroom chips flavors? Or was it Christian Dagan of the clay and pottery studio? Or was it the smart chopping board lady, Carolyn Miser? Or was it Rockin' the Boat with Adam Green? Or was it the Whaling Museum of Cold Spring Harbor, Naomi Dahan? Okay, I have to tell you, don't I? So it was Christian Dagan of the clay and kiln studio. So I hope that her lady and this lady and her mother-in-law don't go fighting over the $10,000 and that they invested wisely to develop further in their ambition. So it was opened up by Ben Mavrock. He is the director of news and programming at Tintin Wins, and Julia Papa won awards as well. So that was more or less it, and it was a great evening, interesting, and thanks to Dime Community Savings Bank for being the main sponsor and presenting the check for $10,000. So later that evening I made my way out to Queens, out to Donovan's Bar in Queens in Woodside for the monthly Mule Society meeting. And it was a great meeting. We had extra entertainment and food and beverages at this event, which was nice. And here I met Michael McMahon, who happens to know Robert Walsh, sorry. So Michael McMahon is the president of the Mule Society, and he is also a buddy of Rob Walsh. So interesting to meet two people at two different events that actually I didn't know individually, but now I have paired them together, and Mike McMahon is an interesting guy as well and very innovative. The vice president is Kieran McAndrew of Liffey Moving Company, and other people there, Mary P. Coyne, I think is the treasurer. Betty McLaughlin is a long good friend of mine and very involved with the Mule Society. Now, while I was there, actually, I met somebody that I never met before in my life, and she was sitting close to me, and her name is Miss McAndrew, another McAndrew, and she presented me with this booklet, which is a copy of the Mule Men's Association dance, which is now the Mule Society, and it was from 1979, and it was their centennial brochure. So they were established in 1879. So the Mule Society has a meeting every month, and they move the meeting around. It's very easy to join if you have a Mule connection somewhere along the way, maybe your ancestors or whoever. You could be married to someone from Mayo, or case may be, and they check you out and you can join. And there's lots of benefits from joining. There's lots of networking and lots of history as well. Kevin Rooney is a member of the society, and if you look up their website too, which I'll give you in a moment, Kevin wrote a great article about James Cagney in the June newsletter. And James Cagney, of course, was Irish-American, I guess, roots, and he performed in a lot of movies. Shake Hands with the Devil was one that was performed in Ireland in 1959, and other movies, of course, Yankee Doodle Dandy. And he lived on the Upper East Side in Yorkville, very streetwise guy, and he was good at boxing, and he was also good at tap dancing, which was kind of a mix of Celtic dancing and I guess Afro dancing combined, a fusion of those two things. Lots of things happen when there are fusions, of course, as we all know. So that was the event there, and I did a podcast back around St. Paddy's Day, and I took you on a tour of various parts of Mayo, the towns from Castlebar, Ballina, and all that. And in this book, I'll be doing another podcast to go back on some of the history of some of the smaller towns like Ball and Culchama and Ballycastle, and of course Belmullet, which is close to my home place of Glenamoy. And we'll be looking at some of the sites, Croagh-Patrick, of course, and the Shrine of Knock. I know the Mule Society has a big trip coming to visit the Shrine of Knock, which was where the Blessed Virgin appeared, and to a bunch of people there locally. And the ironic thing about that is at the time she appeared, all of these people only spoke in their native language, Gaeilge, Irish language, which I speak myself. So this proved that there was no collaboration between the people, that they saw something and whatever, because they all spoke Gaelic. And then it was verified, and it's a famous shrine in Knock where lots of miracles happen and take place. So let me see what else is coming up. I will have Brian Layden, my historian friend, back in a few weeks to talk about presidents of Ireland and where they were born and came from and what their knowledge was of life and politics and so on. So we'll be starting with Douglas Hyde, who was the first president of Ireland, and coming right up to present day, where Michael D. Higgins, my old professor, is still in Áras an Uachtaráin, which is the home of the president in Phoenix Park, which is the largest park in all of Europe, and is famous for many, many different things. It has the zoo, it has horse racing, and various other events take place in Phoenix Park in Dublin. So moving along, that's coming up. And then down the road, I'm waiting for Brian Hogan, who'll be talking to me about rescue dogs and what the work rescue dogs do and how they're trained. And then finally, how they're adopted in the end, in the final stages of their retirement, shall we call it, for want of a better word for putting a dog to his final home to retire, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's about it for now. And if you didn't get the last podcast, check it out. I did a synopsis of all the various podcasts, giving you a little insight to each one. And at the end, I did make a bold statement about how we can achieve a united Ireland in a very peaceful way, because I did a podcast on the Good Friday Agreement. We're celebrating 25 years. And part of that agreement, of course, was that when everybody would agree by the vote, by the ballot, that it's time for United Ireland, this could be achievable. And I think the time is right. And I hope you agree with me. And if you do, please put your comments into this YouTube podcast. My podcast is called It's Good to Talk. And it sure is good to talk. And it's good to listen. So United Ireland is my goal for this year. And hopefully it'll be achieved peacefully for the benefit of all people living on the island of Ireland, both north and south. Benefits to be made from everybody, because Ireland is a part of Europe, the European community, the European market, which is huge advantage for trade and commerce, of course. And we know that Boris Johnson shot himself in the foot, and that didn't help the UK in terms of trade and commerce. And King Charles is having difficulty filling the Queen's shoes because she had very small feet. But we wish King Charles well going forward as well. And of course, you were missing me not to wish Prince Harry well. Okay, so I'll leave you for now and say goodbye. So slán go fóill, slán a bhaile. Bye bye.